Another method of organizing files is to make archives of files available on other systems, transferring them to a remote system. There are two major utilities that are used for transferring a file to a remote system. So here I have the 3 tar files that I've used as examples. And the 2 commands that I'm interested in looking at are the scp command for a secure copy and the rsync command for a remote and local file copying tool. rsync originally was designed to work with a rsync service and is plain text across the network. However, modern versions of it are configured to automatically use the SSH protocols and therefore be an encrypted or secure copy, very similar to SCP. The biggest difference is that rsync has more options for transferring only differences in files, particularly when I'm transferring a directory of files, whereas SCP will always copy all of the files specified. Both of these commands have syntax that is very similar to the cp command in the sense that I will specify a source file and a destination file, or a destination directory. The difference is as I specify either the source or the destination, I'm going to specify a user and a host, very similar to the SSH syntax that's used to access a remote system as well. For example, if I want to use SCP and I want to copy my samples1.tar file to an account on a system called Fedora, I can do that. One special case that I need to make here is not just the username at the host name, but also to put a colon on the end. If I leave the colon off and I look in my current directory, I've just copied that file locally, the same as a cp command. I can also remove that file locally. When I include the colon on the end, what's going to happen is this is now considered a remote directory. I'll get asked for the password for the account at that remote system, and it will transfer that file. If I SSH to that account and that system, and I do an ls, I will see the samples1.tar file. Here you even see it in the default of the colors that are used with the ls command. The tar file is in red, the directories are in blue. I can exit my remote system, come back to my local directory. When I use this scp command and I only specify the user at the system with a colon, the destination is the home directory of that user on the remote system. If I want to put it in a specific directory on that remote system, I can give either an absolute path, starting with a slash, such as temp, or I could specify a relative path, such as desktop, which would be relative to the home directory of that user on the remote system. Similar to the cp command, if that does not exist, it will be considered the file name for this file after it gets to the destination. If it's a directory on the destination, then the file will be placed in that directory. I could do this the other direction as well. So let me go to the temp directory where I do not have a samples file, and I could scp Susan at Fedora samples1.tar to my current directory, and I now have the samples tar file here locally that I got from the remote system. Also, like the copy command, it's possible to specify multiple files. So I could scp samples asterisk and then send that to my destination, the user at the host colon, and it will copy all of the files. One of the differences with the rsync command, which works very similarly, is that if I use rsync instead of scp, I'll still specify my source file or files and my destination location, file or directory. And again with the colon, placing it in the home directory of that user in the remote system, but rsync is more likely to transfer only the differences. It's also not as verbose by default. If I do a man on rsync, I find some of the options that are available here include being able to preserve permissions or give a V for verbose. The easiest way to read the man page for the rsync is to jump down to the examples section and look at some of the specific examples that they give. So some of the options for rsync here include the capital C in order to make sure that it compresses before it sends things across the network. The A for archiving or preserving ownership and permissions. The V is a verbose with it as well. There's also other options to force it to have only the differences to be copied, or to force it to copy everything. Eventually you do get in the man page to the full options, again where V is for verbose and R is recursive to go into directories, very similar to the CP command. Update will skip files that are newer on the receiver, on the destination. Otherwise, all of the source files will be copied to the destination, even if the timestamps indicate that the destination has a newer version. So there are a number of additional options that can be useful in the rsync command, but the syntax of rsync is basically the same as the SCP, and both of them on current Linux systems will use the SSH protocols for a secure connection between the systems.